Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the Inspired Global Networks talk. We've got a fabulous lineup of people. They are our leaders in residence and working industry. I'm going to hand you over to our fantastic host, Stuart Waddington. Over to you.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Salma. Thank you so much for lining up this next webinar. I know it's our second in the series. So just an opening frame, really, from what you've seen on the advertisements, that one of the biggest myths about careers is that they follow a straight line. Today's careers are increasingly non-linear and shaped by unexpected turns, evolving industries, technologies moving faster than ever, and the changing ways of working. So it's exploring this and sharing stories about meaningful careers and the world we now live in is increasingly important to shape our careers and our awareness about how we're leading our futures, our careers ourselves. My name's Stuart Waddington. Just to give you a quick, I've got the absolute privilege of hosting our four panelists today. I was joking with Salma that I should be on the panel because I have definitely done twists and turns and ups and downs in my career, going from sport into the military, out of the military into business, a couple of businesses that aren't here anymore, but they've evolved into bigger beasts. I'm the Cheshire Chair of the Institute of Directors, and if I'd have told myself in the past that I have a golf company that's a tech company, I've also got a consultancy company, and I hold that position of Cheshire Chair, I definitely wouldn't have believed you. So going on to our panelists, I'm going to invite them to quickly introduce themselves and their link to the university and what they're currently doing. So I'll quickly pass that over to Keith. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Stuart. Good morning, everybody. My name's Keith Williams. I'm the CEO of a business called Perifas. It's my own business. I founded it way back in 2012 when we started trading effectively from 2014. We're a global change advocacy. We work with some of the world's largest technology brands, and we help them to solve what we describe as their Pareto problem. How do you find your next big customer, essentially? And it's pretty challenging, and surprisingly, those technology companies aren't quite as good as as you might imagine that they are. My link to the university is through Salma Racha, who very kindly invited me to become a leader in residence back in 2021. Her partner and I are directors in the business, and yeah, I've got a particularly twisty and non-linear career path, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you today.
Thank you very much, Keith. Carl, over to yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Carl Fitzsimons. I'm the managing director of a company called 4Box Consulting. We spend our time on strategy, talent, performance, and coaching with lots of different organisations. My link to Lancaster University is quite a personal one. First of all, I'm a leader in residence here. I have been now for about 5 or 6 years, I think. Originally from Rory, invited me along, and then working very well with Salma and the team. So I love doing these sort of events where I can help. The really personal connection, though, is I've got 3 children who've all been through university at Lancaster and all done very well. So, well, the third one's there at the moment, so she's about to do her exams. So, yeah, very, very interested and always keen to support the university. My background, very quickly, going backwards, really, I left a very good, very interesting role, international role, North European role with an American Fortune 500 company called Ecolab, which I left there to start up my own business. So I would say to anyone who hears me, one thing you should remember is don't start a company up 3 months before a global pandemic. That's an interesting tip I give everybody. But we're here 7 years later, which is great. Before then, I've done international roles across Europe with companies like John West Food Group as the HR director and transformation director for its holding companies, Thai Union and others. I've also looked after capability for companies like PepsiCo and BA Systems as well in my career. And I'm lucky enough to work with some of those organisations now in consultancy roles. The most important thing, I think, for this purpose, this conversation, I started 30-something years ago as an unemployed graduate, not knowing what to do. And that was the key thing, and I didn't know what I wanted to do until I'd started doing it. And I was in this eternal challenge. So I think if we can give some thought today, it's about seizing the moment and running with change. It's our operating environment now. It's not a phenomenon that comes along every now and again. It is literally our operating world. So that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carl. Kelsey, over to yourself.
Good morning, everybody. I always start my introductions the same way. I always say the name's Kelsey, the pronouns she, her. And I graduated Lancaster in 2018, so incredibly personal connection. I studied marketing. Anyone who was from Fylde College, reach out. You have a special place in my heart. And I very much knew that I wanted to get into the world of tech and didn't know where to start. So I suppose my career journey so far is a little bit briefer than some of the other panelists. But I started in account management at first, very much helping people with their marketing and advertising strategies. The pandemic came and I moved into the creator economy and support there in the account management there. And then finally, I'm in the role that I'm in now. So I work at Google as a global program manager, focused on creative strategy and events and experiences. So everything from events with 5 people to 5,000, very much focused on our community events, and an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. Simon, over to yourself.
Stuart, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. So I'm Simon, and I've spent the last 30 years working in the world of talent. And that's been very, very heavily focused on those people coming out of education and moving into the world of work. My professional career has included 4 different startups, and really honestly, none of them were planned. And again, super candidly, I left university with no clear career in mind. All I knew was I wanted to enjoy work and I wanted to earn money. The current startup that I'm part of is called Connected Talent Technology. We're a candidate experience platform for the world of early careers. And through our technology, we enable candidates to identify roles that they're best suited for and have got the best chance to secure. And also within our technology platform, we prepare people for day one so they can land in the business really successfully. In terms of my link to the institution, I guess it's part of the turning points discussion we're going to have today. But a number of years ago, I was approached out of the blue to take over a failing student society network called the Student Industrial Society, which I rebranded into the Bright Future Society, which sounded like a much better name, and built that into the largest university employability society network in the UK, including at Lancaster University, which is where my connection comes from. And I think what that taught me and the experience of that society network that I established was employability isn't something you do to students. What you need to do is build the conditions to enable students to own their employability for themselves. And I'm sure that's going to come up as an ongoing theme. But as a result of that work with the Bright Future Society and what I did at Lancaster and more widely across the UK, a very unexpected opportunity came at me, which is to be asked to join the Leaders in Residence program, like everybody else on this call. So, a very unexpected opportunity as a result of some of the work that I did. Stuart.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Simon. We've got a lot to get in and very little time to do it, so we'll press on. So we'll go through the same format, same order, but we've got some questions here that we've sort of scoped to really hopefully open up that experience and add value to the audience. So the first one is what was that unexpected turn in your career that ultimately shaped where you are today? If I was to ask you, there's probably several. I'm sort of smiling because I know there's several in everybody's journey. But if you were to pick one that really helps add value to the audience and really gives a picture of that adaptability, that non-linear career, those unexpected opportunities, what would it be that you would pick out? So, Keith, do you want to go first?
I guess mine. There are several, as you might expect, in a 40-year career, and like everybody else, I left university unemployed and unsure of what I wanted to do. Didn't really know myself, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. And I think for many of us, the way to find a career is to find something that you love. And mine started with just a chance question to an executive who worked for a company who I'd worked with, who would be my client. He was just the question. I think I'm noticing this behavior within business. I'm noticing that individuals are passive. They're not great at establishing credibility and leading with value and engaging with customers with just a chance conversation. And he said, we've got that problem here. And it was okay. And 3 months later, we were sat down together with his chief executive, discussing a multi-million-pound contract to help their organization transform. And I collected a number of individuals who I knew who were available, who had that skill set to build a new solution in order for that organization to approach business development and value creation in a brand new way, which was led by research and financial evidence. And that's how my business started. It literally started with a chance conversation with a former colleague where there was respect and trust there. And we ended up working for that client for around 5 years, from 2014 through to 2019, and it precipitated an introduction to other blue chips that then allowed us to grow globally. So I think that was unexpected because I wasn't expecting the reaction. It was almost pub talk, but yeah, that's how my business started.
Do you know what, as well, that really, I've just written a couple of things down as you were telling that. It links to that, the power of networking. So the people that you know and surround yourself with, and then asking questions and curiosity. With the world of LinkedIn now, I always encourage people to reach out and tell stories and ask questions about sectors that you're interested in. I'm amazed about how many people are willing to give you their time and add some value to you of curiosity and questions. So thank you so much for that. Thank you very much. Carl, over to yourself. What is your unexpected turn?
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to Keith. Actually, Keith, that's resonated a few thoughts with me. Like Keith, look, and I guess my grey hair shows that. There's lots of examples where there's been different changes. I think there's one common theme, though, and it takes me back very early in my career when I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I met a wonderful person called Howard Whiteley, passed away now. And I offer tribute to Howard because I'm really honouring Howard in doing this sort of events today. He was an ex-HR director of the Next and Grattan Corporation, and he came to the universities and sat down with us and helped us to work through what we really wanted to do. And one of the key messages he gave to me at that time was, look, you need to stop fixating on having exactly the right answer for your first career role. You'll never get off go. Focus on your strengths, focus on those things that interest you. What do you want to do, Carl? And I said, well, what you're doing seems interesting. And he said, right, okay, let me take you. Look at my CV, see it as a series of signposts to allow me to be here as a consultant working with you at the university. Start with the end in mind and work back. Now, that isn't being overly clear. The world's too confusing now to be like that. But have a North Star, have something that you think ultimately you'd like to be able to do. And in my case, it was coming back and working with companies and helping them to support them. In order to do that, I needed to build skills up. I had to build some credibility in international businesses in order for non-international businesses possibly, and some international businesses to want some help. First piece of advice he gave me was base yourself on your strengths, have a broad idea of what you would like to do. And I think Simon made the point before, it's not work. If you're enjoying it, it carries you. So from that point of view, start with an end in mind broadly, work backwards from there. The third most important piece of advice was everything that comes across that's an opportunity will be fearful. You don't grow unless you lean into it. That steered me into big decisions. To answer your very quick question in a long way, do I go into an international role with a young family? Well, actually, if I'm going to be doing this in the future, I have to. Do I come out and set up my own business? Well, I have to if I'm going to get into that area. Do it go come out of, say, university world into corporate world? Well, I have to if. So it created a pull for me, I suppose. So that, I don't know if that answered the question, Stuart, but that's my offer.
Yeah, it certainly does. And again, the start of your story led me to think about that perfectionist mindset. I always, as humans are linked into that sometimes, perfectionist mindset. And I always reframe that and say, what does good look like? And what does good look like? The perfectionist mindset definitely holds us back a little bit more, doesn't it? From that good old word I've had to learn of procrastination. So frame it as what does good look like leans into a bit more action focus. Let's make a couple of steps forward. So thank you so much for that. Kelsey, over to yourself.
Thank you. And I think before I kick off with my answer, I have to say a personal thank you to Simon, because I, in fact, was part of a Bright Futures at Lancaster. I was part of one of the societies.
Amazing.
I headed up marketing there, and I do give it credit to me being where I am today. So I'll put that in there as well, Simon. Thanks for the thumbs up. I suppose my answer really does align with many of the points that have already been said. I, Stuart, know that I certainly was too much of a perfectionist when I was at uni. I was one of those people who agonized about my first career, and I very much tried to look at limiting the risk that I had, and what I thought would be a bad decision. And I think one of the areas that has really helped me to pivot and change with that mindset, but then also with some of those unexpected changes, is really trying to lean into that risk. I think the moment that comes to mind for me is, in fact, the pandemic. So I had decided that I wasn't necessarily getting full career fulfillment in my role. And I decided that during a global pandemic, this would be the best time to quit my job and move from Ireland to the UK with no plan and no understanding of what I was going to do. But I really wanted to try and see about what opportunities were available, because whilst we were having this global shutdown, it also led to a lot of people spending time at home that were available to talk, to provide mentorship, to provide guidance. And I think some of those conversations where they were discussing about that need to have 100% of your experience match a job description, and I certainly know that I was terrible at that. So I started applying to everything and anything that had around 50 to 60%, I'd say, of the experience that would be applicable. Anything else was just transferable skills. Let's hope they power me through. And it's how I ended up moving into influencer marketing, which I had absolutely no background in other than a singular module at Lancaster. But a lot of the work that I'd done around account management is what I spoke to within those interviews, and was the element that essentially had me picked over those that had been working in the field. So it was one where I'll be very honest and say I took a much lower salary than I was on, but I wanted to gain experience in a completely new field that I thought might have a bit more personal alignment to what I wanted to do and my own values, which I say my first job really taught me about what I liked and what I didn't like, because to that point, everything else is still theoretical. So now that I had that background experience, it really told me what I could lean into.
Amazing. And do you know what? I've just, again, I love listening to these stories, because you reminded me of the what I'm deeming like the generational transition, because we still have a generation with us, like my parents are in their 80s, and when they were going through the career pathway, it was a career for life. So there's still that mindset and generational transition of that mindset that I have the pressure of finding a career for life. And obviously in these conversations, and we know that in this generation, we still have so many opportunities to have that positive adaptability of your skill set, opportunities. You just don't know what you don't know yet. I'm still coming across careers that I didn't even know existed. So there's a big wide world out there. So Kelsey, thank you so much for sharing that. So Simon is very pleased with himself over here. So Simon, over to you. What's your unexpected turn in your career?
Yeah, thank you. And I think one of the things that has created a number of drift. Well, I think there's never just one. And I think what's key to it is coming back to a bit of a theme that a number of people have mentioned, is you never quite know where that turn is going to come from. So I think one of the things that's hugely important is just to have your head up and your eyes open, because there is all kinds of things that kind of come at us. But I think one of the things that for me, I think has created probably all the twists and turns that I've had in my career has been realizing very early on that what I really enjoy doing was seeing others thrive. That's what I got real. That's why I got out of bed every day. That's what put a spring in my step every single day, was seeing others thrive. And so one of the things and because of the work I did in the early career space, one of the things I recognized is that so many grads just weren't ready for the world of work. They weren't ready for job hunting and how challenging and how difficult it was. So I started going into universities, just talking to students, because I work with loads of employers, helping them recruit their talent. And I ran this session in universities called How to Get the Best Graduate Job. It was an hour. And I told them absolutely everything. I was like the inside trader of kind of graduate recruitment. And on the back of that work, which I did in lots of different unis, completely pro bono, I just went in and did it. This opportunity came up for these student societies. I didn't even know they existed, but I was contacted out of the blue and said, "Hey, Simon, I hear you do all this stuff at universities. You want to take on this what was failing network of societies?" And I think what became clear for me as we grew that network of societies is that there's so much. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. Is talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. And so I became really obsessed about how do we create more opportunity, particularly for what I would describe as underrepresented talent. So that became my next kind of thing that I really focused on. So I got really involved in the whole kind of social mobility world. And on the back of that, I was approached out of the blue to join a government commissioned task force looking at how to improve socio-economic diversity in financial and professional services. And I ended up working with the Lord Mayor of London, so not the political one, but the Dick Whittington one, right? So working with him, working with incredibly senior people in financial services. And on the back of that, we set up a brand new membership body called Progress Together for the financial services sector in the UK, that over a third of people who work in FS now are a part of. And all of this, none of this I knew about any of that world, knew nothing about that world. But because I realized in myself about what I really cared about and what was important, and to find ways to do what I love, all kinds of opportunities came at me. And I keep bumping into amazing people who've done amazing things like Kelsey, who are part of the Bright Future Society. And that's the bit I get excited about, is bumping into people who go, "Oh yeah, I was part of that, Simon, and it had a really cool impact on me." And I just love the fact that, you know, it unlocking all this talent that is out there, and how important that is, and what a difference that makes in individuals' lives, but also what a difference it makes from a much bigger kind of macroeconomic point about unlocking talent and unlocking ability. And by focusing on that, all kinds of cool things have come at me, which I've loved doing.
Amazing. Do you know what? Your stories reminded me of the lucky mentality of, like, some people would look at that and say, "Oh, you've been quite lucky," and I have people say that I'm quite lucky, but it's the people and the opportunities and the rooms, and people don't necessarily see all the groundwork that goes in the background. Regards to, you've got to step into those positions to create that. I'm a massive advocate of, you create your own luck, and you never know where something's going to go, do you?
I think that's absolutely right, Stuart. And a real theme within that, I think, is about serving others.
Yeah.
So the more you think about what can I do to help other people, the more opportunities you then benefit. One of my mantras in life is you have to give to get.
Yeah.
and you have to do it in that order. But if you do that, all kinds of cool stuff will come out.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
again,
I'll get off
sometimes
my
you'll laugh
soapbox.
at, hopefully most people will smile at this, that there are some things that take longer to come back than others. But it's that consistency over time always wins. So,
And you never know where it's going to come from, but just keep doing
yes.
it and stuff
Yeah.
will come at you.
Yeah. So, fantastic. Let's move on to our next sort of question that will hopefully add so much value to the audience, and it speaks to sort of what you've all talked about, which is that awareness piece. So whether you were aware at the time or not, or whether it's on reflection, we're now looking at kind of like the skill set and the behaviors side of things. So what helped you stay adaptable during those times of change or uncertainty? So you might have been aware of what you were having to do at the time. Most of the time, people look back and reflect on some of these skills and behaviors that you had to implement. But just speaking to that sort of continuous learning, that mindset, what was that got you through those sort of periods of twists and turns, ups and downs? So, Keith, over to yourself.
So this is actually a theme that I've become more aware of over time, rather than something I was aware of at the point. But I've always loved puzzles and loved solving problems. It's something that I just really enjoy. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to change your mindset and look at things in a different way. And when we're working with clients and candidly, in terms of my career, I find that we use this phrase called being outside in rather than inside out. So we've all recently gone through the Instagram, the Facebook, the TikTok generation, where there's a lot of inside out projection. Let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about what I do and how I do it. And actually, in order to bring value to clients and value to yourself, what you often have to do is to look at the individuals that you're engaging with and say, I noticed this about your organization, and I thought if we did this, then we could make a change. And that single change in terms of emphasis from the let me talk about me as opposed to let me understand you has really held us in great stead, and helped me in great stead for my career journey, because that within that mindset you're projecting value. And I was fascinated by what Simon was saying earlier, because that really resonated. It's this sense of bringing joy to others or bringing value to others that actually ultimately can be rewarding for yourself, and that would be the big one, and the curiosity that goes with that. So rather than wait for things to happen, proactively go and do things that make a difference, and figure out how to stand out from the crowd rather than blend into the crowd. Because in order to be valued in terms of opportunity, you've got to in some way differentiate yourself, both personally and from in a business sense too. And I think those themes are really important, because if you look like everybody else, sound like everybody else, speak like everybody else, it becomes very difficult to actually separate yourself from others in that career competition, or in that business competition that we certainly live in. And there is a tendency to sameness in society, and for example, everybody uses email and social, etc., to engage. We use a physical letter. Why? Because nobody gets one. And guess what? If nobody gets one, you stand out, because nobody gets one. Just a little example of differentiating yourself and being curious and being outside in and making it personal to the people that you work with. So that would be, from an adaptability perspective, you can change as others change because you're adopting that I noticed, I thought. That's how
Amazing.
That's how I've stayed adaptable.
I like that. It reminds me of disruptor marketing. There's some really good ones out there, aren't there? Good old social media tells about them. Carl, over to yourself.
Yes, I'm just so I'm mindful of time, so I'll try and be brief for you, Stuart. I think a couple of things come to my mind, really, in terms of adapting. One is linking back to what Kelsey was saying. I love the point about, I think I'm 50, 60% there for this opportunity, and then lean into your transferable skills. Without doubt, what's got me through my career is transferable skills, because I've been in different industries, from public sector to private to international roles, etc. So you have to trust yourself, I think, is really important. I love the work of Carol Dweck. If anyone's come across the work around the closed mindset or growth mindset, she comes up with a fantastic term. It's lovely. Not yet. So it's not I can't do something. I mean, I'm struggling to do this. Not yet. I will be able to. So I'm not there yet, but I will be able to do something. And that's the 40, 50% bridge that I think Kelsey was referring to before. I can do, yes, I will grow. So being prepared to grow is really important. The other thing, which is an obvious point for me, is, and I had someone say this recently, the most important voice in your head, the most important voice that you hear is the one inside your head. So if you're talking yourself into, I can't do it yet, but I will do, and I will grow. So I think that point has carried me through. Really good example. Carl, we'd like you to go and base yourself in Paris. We'd like you to manage an international team. You've done very well in the UK and Ireland and Northern Europe. We'd like you to go into Paris. I got a D in my French at GCSE.
Back to university.
So I was thinking, how am I going to cope with everybody having to speak English with me? Because I don't like people having to go extra yards for me. I did it. The team are fantastic. They helped me. I improved. I got better. They would still laugh if they were listening about my broken French, but we made it work together. It was important. So seize the moment. Go 50% plus, to Kelsey's point before. Really, the voice inside your head is important. To Keith's point, if you're not sure what your strengths are, go and ask 5 people. Go and ask 5 people. Listen to what they tell you. That's how I set my business up. I'm doing 4 things that people told me I was reasonably good at. And also I checked that I enjoyed it, to Simon's point before, and that's what I do. So I do suggest that it's not yet, really important. The extra 50%, it will come, trust yourself. And that's what I'll say for now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I love that. Kelsey, over to yourself.
I think with adapting, I think it comes hand in hand with that continuous learning point. I think one of the areas for me is when I was leaving university, I had a theoretical understanding of a lot of areas and what I would have to do, but I didn't know the environment with which I'd be operating within. And I think that is probably the biggest learning curve for any pivots, is who are some of the power players within that industry? How does the world work on a day-to-day? How much are we leaning into meritocracy versus who you know? And I think a reality of the world of work, especially, I suppose, being entrepreneurial, is there is an environment, there is a game, and it is partly how you play it, not just the skills that you have. And so with a lot of the changes that I've had in my career so far, I was joining networking events, niche networking events, where I didn't have a role there. I lied. I'll fully admit I lied and said that I worked in that sector, and I didn't. But it was a great way to be able to sit there with people and truly hear the real of what being in that environment was like, and the parts they liked and they didn't like. And I think it's within those insights that you're able to glean how you are able to operate within those environments, and therefore how you're able to thrive within them. And I think it's the part that tends to be left unsaid sometimes, that there are some of these different parameters that you just won't know until you do. And I think it says a lot how much people have talked about the network they've had and the advice they've gained from that network as a result. But I think being able to adapt, and the work I've done so far has been about that learning of the environment more than anything else.
Amazing. Yeah, and so relevant, and it's ever evolving and changing, isn't it? It's the complexity of things are getting exponentially larger. So fantastic. Thank you so much. Simon, over to yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, I've touched on one of them already, which is, um, how do you stay adaptable? I think it's open your eyes and lift your head up. We can often kind of get sucked downwards into detail and minutiae and worrying about lots of different things. So I think it's not an easy thing to do, because they're all, legitimate things that we're thinking about or worrying about, which comes back to that kind of fear that's been spoken about today. So I think that's definitely important. But I think one of the key skills I think that's really helped me stay adaptable sort of links to the point that Kelsey was making, which is about drawing on the support of others. I think is so important. If you're thinking about making a change or you're feeling like change is coming, there will be people around you who want to support you on that change journey, but you need to ask. So I think a really important skill is asking people, and for their perspective, for their thought. Because one of the things I've very definitely learned is there are so many people who want to help you, who want the best for you, but I think sometimes you've got to ask for it. And it links to the point that Kelsey made about insight. Getting insight from people. If you're thinking about doing something differently, thinking about doing something new, talking to people who are perhaps doing that, and that could be well-known people, influencers and so on, or it could just be ordinary folk. And if I think about my current startup business and our tech business, one of the bits of functionality delivers exactly that. So if you're thinking of thinking of some of our clients, whether that's kind of Accenture or Lloyds Banking Group, there are people on the platform that you can connect with who work in that organization in the role you're potentially looking to do, that you can just reach out to and talk to and ask questions of and get that insight that Kelsey was talking to. So I think the biggie for me is around asking for insight and drawing on your network. Another point that's been made today, to get other perspectives and other views from other people to help you navigate that change and that transformation.
Amazing. It reminds me of a couple of things there, actually. So I always encourage people to be a bit, in the blanket term, be more selfish, like really drive yourself forwards. Like society looks at selfishness as a negative thing, potentially. But at the same time, it's a team game. So that network and connection, people, but you've got to be the one that selfishly goes, right, I want to be curious. I want to ask questions. I want to put myself out there. So fantastic. I'm just going to share a quick story because I think this is always really powerful. So I've been lucky enough to interview quite a few really good people, and you would put on a pedestal of leadership. And one of the most impactful ones was I was lucky enough to interview Gary Ridge, who isn't anymore the global CEO of WD-40 company. And he moved from Australia to the US to take the CEO-ship. And he shared this phenomenal story where you would think as a global CEO, you had all the answers. And he says, I quickly realized the thing I said most was, I don't know. And he was very complexed about this experience he was having. So at that level, and I think he was in his mid to late 40s, he took himself off to university to learn about leadership. So I love telling that story because it's that continuous learning. Like as you step up the career ladder, it doesn't get easier. Your experience gets more, but the complexity definitely changes. And what a great story of going, well, it's never too late to go, I need to learn. I need to do it for myself, but I also need to do it for my organization. Okay, so I'm going to bring one more question to the table. I'm going to go to the last question because I think it's really relevant in the current world. So as technology continues to evolve rapidly, what human skills become even more important for that emerging next generation talent moving forwards? Leaning back to if you were to transform yourself now into a new career and going back, what would that be from the human skills as the world is ever changing and evolving? Heath, over to you.
Right. Okay. I think a a curious proactivity is perhaps the two words that when put together link trying to seek an understanding and then acting upon it. And I think those two they sum up really, if we're thinking about the world of AI and the potential, the perceived threat and the perceived opportunity that comes from an AI environment, that creative skill set that's driven by curiosity, that's driven by by acting proactively is somewhat magnified. So we initially, when we saw AI and the introduction of large language models, we started to use them and look at how we might improve the way we wrote and adapting grammar. And then we had to remove all the M dashes and all the other things that came from the initial versions of LLM. But over time, we've learned to probe and ask and develop new solutions and new themes and new ways of solving problems with artificial intelligence. And it's only our curiosity that actually drives that, and the fact that we've acted and checked the authenticity of the data that underpins that, because ultimately that's the way has been really very important. And I think a curious proactivity in the world of AI will allow you to advance very, very quickly, and that skill set should not be underestimated in the new world of work that we're approaching. It can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, fantastic. I echo your thoughts on those, some of the things we've been doing as well. So, Carl, thoughts?
Yeah, I love learning. So AI is amazing for me. My children and my family will say to me, "Oh God, you're looking at AI." No, I'm really intrigued by it. The technology is fantastic, and I see it as pivotal. But I see it pivotal for two reasons. One, it can really speed things up. It gives us depth. It gives us pace. It removes some of those transactional activities wonderfully well. And there are 5 or 6 jobs I was looking. I actually used AI the other day to find out which roles are new. Prompt engineer is a new role. There was a business automation engineer, synthetic data engineers, and Kelsey's probably immersed by these people around her at the moment. AI ethics, new careers, and fantastic. These roles didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. They've removed first-line data entry positions, of course, AI. We don't have customer services roles, etc. It is pivotal in our ability to speed and to get smart decisions quickly, some smart decisions. It also has a worrying element to it for me, which is pivotal. If you ask AI to do something, let's say you asked it to write some marketing prose for you, and you're very happy with that marketing prose. If you copy and paste and put it back in again, it will change it. It seeks to please you, not please your audience. It seeks to please you. And sometimes that can be quite disturbing. So I think what we can't lose is the common sense thread. Is this making a difference to me? Is this making a real difference to my customer? Because it will just constantly, it wants to please, it will constantly come back with new and better and improved versions. So I just think let's not lose ourselves in a doom loop of my work isn't good enough because I'm keep putting it into AI and it criticizes it. Use it to enhance some of the things that you're doing. Use it where it adds value. Don't lose the common sense touch as well. That'd be my observation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's resonated a couple of things, but I'll pass over to Kelsey first.
This would probably be a whole nother webinar, Stuart.
I know.
This is certainly my world all day, every day. And I'd say, Keith, if you ever need help on prompt architecture and agents, I'm your girl. Hit me up. But I think to Carl's point, yes, we're seeing unprecedented job creation and changes, I think, across every sector. I think they're AI responsibility, AI and social impact. But I think when I think about my world, there is so much of my role that is changing every single day. I'm constantly and continuously having to upskill right now, which I am enjoying, but I will be vulnerable and say is incredibly fearful, because everyone does have maybe that small back of mind worry of, is this something that could potentially replace me? And I think to your question, Stuart, where I'm finding that I'm being relied on more as our workflows have been changing is two areas. The first one is that ideation. And I think Keith was mentioning about this, which is just that allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to put your technology away and just let your mind wander, not think about anything in particular. One of the areas I do actually have in my workflow is at least once a month on a Friday, I try and have a no meeting block where my manager would probably say I do nothing. But really, I will look at some very big picture ideas or some thought starters that I've seen in the press. And I'll just allow myself to wonder and think, well, what if I could do this for 10,000 people? And what if I could try and think of another way to surprise and delight that people haven't seen before? And you'd be surprised at how many times I'll have conversations further down the line. And I had one last week where someone comes to me with a problem and I'm able to connect the dots and link the two. And I think that ideation is something that technology will never truly be able to replicate, because much of it stems, and that training data stems on the ideas of those before us. So I'd love to see people really making sure that they leave time for that ideation. And then the last part is that nuance. I think human to human interaction with stakeholders, with some of the clients and the vendors that I work with as well, that being able to pick up real time on the nuance and empathy that is needed for some of those discussions, especially some of those more difficult moments, is something that you would never be able to lean on technology for. I think we have the ability to really tap into the hidden meanings behind words, behind some of those different intentions with individuals, and pick up on those and really be able to, I'd say, speak to them. So I think people should just really be aware of how they have those conversations between each other, but more than everything, just allowing themselves that time to dream. I don't think we do it enough. It's a very attention grabbing society that we are in right now. I would know, I've worked in social media, but giving yourself that space to pause is really important.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's really thought-provoking, funnily enough, and it's so true. I only shared yesterday with the group I was working with that I'm surrounded by a lot of noise. I spin a lot of plates, and sometimes when I'm in the car, I am just in the car with no podcast, no phone call, no news, no radio. I use that as my silence, and the dog walk as well. But yeah, that's really pinnacle to have that no noise. So fantastic. Thank you so much. Simon, over to yourself.
Thanks, Joe. And just on that point about no noise and time in the car, I've heard that called windscreen time.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Is that so you can put it in your work diary as looking like you're actually doing something? Kelsey's writing that down.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things that spring to mind, and I definitely reinforce everything that everyone else has said. They've made some really powerful points there. I think I was at an event recently talking about the whole future of work piece, and one of the speakers said something quite surprising, but I thought really thought-provoking, which is that he feels that firms and organizations and institutions are spending a huge amount of time and money trying to work out what are the future skills that we're going to need. And he feels that's a bit of a red herring because the world is so unpredictable and so fast changing. His view actually is what we really need to develop is not just the ability to learn and constantly learn, which is that curiosity piece, which I think he started with, but to love learning. And that was really important. So rather than this pressure to learn, I've got to find a way to love learning. And I thought that really struck a chord with me when I heard that. So that's one. I think another really important skill is courage, being brave. There's a huge amount of pressure on people to know what they want to do, know what career they want to have, and today's event couldn't be a better summary of who the hell knows what kind of careers we're all going to have and how they're going to change. And sometimes it's just about being brave and trying stuff, and in the knowledge that it's not forever. It doesn't work out, that's cool, go do something else. Gone are the days when companies obsessed about the fact that if you've not spent 4 or 5 years in a company before you move, there's something wrong with you. That world has changed. So I think being brave and courage is another one. And then the final one I would make, and it builds on the point that Kelsey made, which is around that links to this AI point, which is one of the things I hear a number of the more sophisticated organizations who are further down the AI journey is they're starting to get nervous that their people come too reliant on it and don't understand enough about the how that's happened. And therefore, one of the things they worry is that their people will use AI so heavily that they'll lack judgment. So that ability to look at something, go, that just doesn't feel right. That doesn't look right. And there's a risk we just take it as a given. And I was talking to one of the big 4 consulting firms the other day, and they were making the point about their graduate trainees coming in, and a lot of the repetitious work that they used to do when they came in as trainees to learn the ropes and to learn how things are, they're not doing anymore because AI are doing that. So what they're actually doing is creating simulations to enable them to learn how to do that work. They may never need to have to do it, but what they do need to do is to develop that judgment in individuals so that they can question and challenge and be curious about what's come up and where's it come from. So those would be my 3.
Amazing. That you've just made me think about. My wife's in education, and we talk all the time about the interview process, and we go to people skills all the time. I think it's more and more important now to have those people skills of get that ability to have experiences to be able to then tell stories, and whether that be through sport, through hobbies, through family, through travel. And then that leans into, are you able to hold a conversation? Are you able to present? Are you able to then have that ability to make decisions based on experience? So you can really, early on in your career transition, have that element of being able to tell a story, present, have a meaningful conversation of just how you hold yourself. Even you can tell how somebody holds themselves on a screen. You can tell somebody how the presence they have when you meet them in person. So I'm very conscious of time. We've done very well so far. So thank you so much for helping panel. I'm not going to I am going to put you on the spot a little bit without having a specific question. Just ask you for your final thoughts. With the audience that we have, alumni, employers, early careers, without going to the cheesiness of what would you have told yourself when you were at that stage of early careers, what are your final thoughts, just to bring together what we've spoken about today and to hopefully add a little bit of final value to the audience? Just a minute each, if that's okay. So Keith, over to yourself. I won't put a timer on, but
60 seconds starts now. I'm drawn to a lecture that was given to me or that I attended at university when I did my master's degree, and we were talking about psychology in business and the and different individual skills that were needed. And I'm always drawn back to this. I was told that to be a great entrepreneur, you needed the ability to think and do in balance at a high level. As you become a leader in an organization that is more sophisticated, you need the ability to think, you need the ability to plan, and the ability to do in balance at a high level. But as you're progressing up the greasy pole within large corporates, or as you transition into becoming becoming a bigger organization, you need the ability to think, you need the ability to plan, you need the ability to do, and you need the ability to communicate, to tell everybody about what you've been doing in order to drive that organization and yourself forward. So 4 things: think, plan, do, communicate would be my summary of the themes that have come out of today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Carl. Over to yourself.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to listen to you guys today. I've learned a lot. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Simon, Keith, and thank you, Stuart. So yeah, really where I'm at, I guess, from listening today, and where it's changed from when I first came into the meeting, actually, which I think is an example of how change is everywhere, right? So some of the thoughts which emerged, which were not part of my prep. First, change is our operating environment. So it's okay. If you're on this call today and listening, the chances are you've got some dissatisfaction with your career. I've never met anyone who hasn't got dissatisfaction with a career. It's okay. Second point is experience is what you get when you didn't get what you want. So if you're not getting what you want at the moment, what's the learning? Because you learn nothing from your badges and your awards. You learn from your experience. That's what shapes you. Going back to the bit which Kelsey got me thinking about, which is the not yet bit from Carol Dweck. We haven't got the skills yet. Lean into it. I love Kelsey's point about the 50%. And the last thing I'd say in regard to AI and the technology bit, be the conductor, not the violinist, because the violinist might get replaced. Think about how you can harness the technology, but don't lose yourself in it.
Amazing. That's good. I like those analogies. I like it. Kelsey, over to yourself.
I will say very quickly that, Carl, I'm stealing that last point with pride. I have AI talk coming up, and I'm going to say right now, I will give you a little attribution, but I think that was wonderfully summed up there. I know we've got to be quick here, and I think most of the points have already been stated, but I think just that point around ideation rings true, where I have been able to be added to rooms that I don't necessarily or shouldn't be in is because I've been the one to bring the big idea. I've been the one to turn around and be there in a senior leader stakeholder room where they go, well, Kelsey thought of this and we need to hear it from her directly. And that has given me those opportunities. I'd say it's a huge part of why I was able to pivot the way I have in some of the roles I've had, because I was one bringing the ideas to the table. So keep that ideation time, because you don't know what opportunities it can give you.
Yeah, fantastic. I think we can all resonate. It's making me smile a little bit because I've been in certain rooms where I've been like, how have I got here? I'm way out of my depth. But if you're not doing that, you're probably doing something wrong. So Simon, over to yourself.
That's a tough set of summaries to follow, I think, would be one of my comments. I mean, so much really powerful stuff to take away. I think 2 thoughts really, a really big picture thought. I think one of the challenges that we face at the moment, thinking about people coming out of education, is changing the educational system takes a long time. You know, even planning new courses takes a long time. But the world is moving so fast, and so that's creating real challenges for organizations, for academic institutions. But I think changing the environment is quicker. So one of the things I'll be thinking about is those organizations and those academic institutions that I think it can change the environment to create an environment where people can love learning. Coming back to an earlier point that I made, I think is going to be really telling and really powerful. So that's my kind of big picture reflection. My more individual reflection is say yes to stuff, volunteer, put your hand up. I think that unlocks all the opportunities that we've heard everyone talk about today. All those twists and turns in people's careers have come about because people have been brave or courageous or desperate or in trouble or thinking like they've got time on it, whatever it happens to be, but they've said yes to stuff. And I think everyone on this call is just reflecting what people have said, are where they are today, much more because of what they've said yes to than what they've said no to.
Perfect.
Amazing. Great way of finishing the webinar. And my military timing buzzer has gone off in my head, and I know it's exactly 11 o'clock. So it's almost like we planned it. So Keith, Carl, Kelsey, Simon, thank you so much for your time this morning. Lancaster University and Selma, thank you so much for allowing us to put this on for the audience as well. And we look forward to doing many more of these. And thank you so much for your time for tuning in and listening to us. Salma, handing back to yourself.
Thank you, Stuart.
Or Salma, you're on mute.
Thank you, Stuart, for hosting this wonderful event, and thank you to all our leaders in residence. Everything that they do is free of charge, so if anybody wants to connect with them, just reach out to me. We can support with guest lectures, panel discussions, one-to-ones, light touch mentoring. It's a free service. I'm a matchmaker. Get in touch with me and I'll connect you with them. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Salma.
Thank you, Salma. Thanks for organising, Salma.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well chaired, Stuart.
Thank you. See you soon, guys.
Great job, Stuart.
Hello.